I woke to the wrong kind of quiet. Not silence, awareness. My body felt too awake, every inch humming like it had been tuned overnight. The first thing I noticed was the bed. The sheets. I'd slept in them my whole life, but now the cotton grazed my skin like it didn't belong there, every fold registering with unsettling clarity. When I shifted even slightly, sensation rippled across me, sharp and intimate, as if my nerves had been rewired while I slept. I froze beneath the blankets, eyes still shut, trying to make sense of it. Fever, maybe. That had to be it. My heart was racing, hammering against my chest in an uneven panic. I inhaled slowly, but even the breath felt unfamiliar, my lungs expanding into a space that seemed subtly altered, reshaped. I lifted a hand to check my forehead. The hand was almost mine. Same fingers. Same faint scar on the knuckle from that stupid bike crash years ago. But the skin was different, smoother, softer, warmer. When I turned my palm upward, the give of it startled me. It looked delicate in a way that sent a jolt of fear through my spine. I curled my fingers into a fist, as if that might force reality back into place. It didn't. Panic surged hot and sudden. I kicked the blankets away and sat upright, the room tilting as my balance wavered. Everything around me was unchanged, posters peeling slightly at the corners, game art taped to the wall, my hoodie draped over the chair like always. Normal. Comfortingly normal. Except my body wasn't. My oversized t-shirt clung and draped where it never had before, settling against my collarbones with an unfamiliar softness. Cold air from the cracked window brushed my legs, raising fine goosebumps I didn't remember having. When I stood, my movements felt smoother. Less heavy. My feet touched the hardwood floor and I swayed, steadying myself. Instinct took over. I folded my arms around my torso, trying to contain myself, to hide. The hoodie. I needed it. I crossed the room and pulled it on, grateful for the weight of it, until the fleece lining touched my skin. It was too much. The fabric wasn't just warm, it was present. Every fiber announced itself, my mind cataloging the sensation in painful detail. My breath came shallow. What's happening to me? I whispered. The voice that answered was mine, but altered. Higher. Softer. Like it had been gently reshaped rather than replaced. A sick thought crept in. Drugs. Poison. Some bizarre reaction I'd never heard of. My thoughts spiraled, colliding into worst-case explanations. I had to look. I couldn't not look. I moved down the hallway on unsteady legs, refusing to glance down at myself. The bathroom door loomed ahead, closed and waiting, as if it already knew. My hand shook as I reached for the knob. The fluorescent light flickered to life with a low buzz. I gripped the sink and forced myself to raise my eyes. The face staring back was Alex's. And it wasn't. Nothing was dramatically wrong, no sudden stranger, no movie-style transformation. Instead, it was a collection of tiny changes that felt far more disturbing. My jaw had softened. My skin looked impossibly clear, smooth, almost luminous. My eyes, still the same dark blue, were framed differently, wider, gentler, lashes longer than they should have been. Fear hit me cold and absolute. This couldn't be real. I had to still be dreaming. I splashed water onto my face, the chill biting, undeniable. Droplets slid down skin that felt unmistakably solid, unmistakably changed. I looked back at the mirror. It didn't change back. The reflection didn't vanish. Water slid from my chin, dripping into the sink, and the girl in the mirror kept staring back with my eyes, wide, shaken, unmistakably aware. Fear still gripped me, tight and suffocating, but beneath it something else began to surface. Quiet. Dangerous. Interest. I studied her the way one might study a bruise, unable to look away, repelled and drawn at the same time. My gaze drifted downward, tracing my own unfamiliar outline. Neck. Shoulders. The bulky hoodie did little to hide how differently I occupied my body now. I was curled inward without meaning to be, shoulders drawn forward as if instinctively shielding something tender beneath the fabric. I tried to correct it. Straightened my back. Squared my shoulders. Planted my feet the way I always had. My body resisted. The pose felt stiff, artificial, like I was forcing myself into a shape I no longer fit. When I relaxed, my weight shifted naturally to one side, my hips settling into an alignment that sent a spike of panic through my thoughts. Everything about this was wrong. And yet, my body exhaled. The contradiction made my stomach twist. My mind was screaming, alarms blaring, insisting this was impossible, invasive, horrifying. But the physical sensation, the balance, the ease, felt disturbingly natural. If this is so wrong, a small, traitorous thought murmured, why does it feel like I've done this before? I didn't have an answer. I stood there until the water dried on my skin, the world subtly tilting, as if reality itself had been nudged off-center. The morning dissolved into a fog. I moved through the house like an echo, barely present. Pulling on jeans and another hoodie took far more effort than it should have. The denim scraped against my skin, every seam announcing itself. The fit was off in ways I couldn't ignore, too tight in some places, oddly loose in others. It felt like I was wearing someone else's clothes. Or pretending to be someone I wasn't. Chloe was in the kitchen when I finally emerged. My sister had always carried herself like she belonged anywhere she stood, 2 years older, sharp, self-assured, the kind of person who never seemed uncertain about who she was. We were close, but there was always a part of her that felt untouchable, like she operated on a wavelength I could sense but never quite tune into. She didn't look up from the coffee maker. "Morning," she said lightly. "You look like death warmed over." I muttered something vague and reached for a mug. My hands felt uncooperative, my movements too deliberate, like I was concentrating on each step of a routine I'd once known instinctively. I felt her attention settle on me anyway. "Everything okay?" she asked. The brightness drained from her voice, replaced by something sharper. "Yeah," I said quickly. Too quickly. "Just tired." The words sounded wrong coming out of my mouth. I kept my eyes down, convinced that if she really looked at me, she'd see through the layers of fabric, through skin and bone, straight to the truth I didn't understand myself. I could feel myself shrinking under her gaze, arms folded tight, shoulders curved inward, making myself smaller without realizing it. The hours dragged. I tried to lose myself in a game, but the controller felt slick in my hands, the vibrations buzzing unpleasantly through my arms and settling somewhere deep in my chest. I shut it off and retreated to my room, burying myself beneath the blankets like a child hiding from something unspeakable. The monster wasn't under the bed. It was me. Late afternoon brought a knock. Soft. Measured. "Alex?" Chloe's voice. "Can I come in?" I didn't answer. The door opened anyway. She lingered in the doorway, studying me in a way that made my skin prickle. "Come to my room," she said finally. It wasn't a suggestion. My stomach clenched as I followed her down the hall. Her room was immaculate, every surface intentional. Books arranged with precision. Desk spotless except for her laptop, and a small metallic object that caught my eye. She shut the door behind us. The click echoed far too loudly. "Sit," she said, motioning to the bed. She remained standing, arms crossed, expression composed in that unsettling way she had when she already knew more than she was letting on. "You've been off all day," she said calmly. "Avoiding me. Hiding." "I don't know what you mean," I replied, the lie thin and trembling. She didn't argue. Instead, she walked to her desk and picked up the object I'd noticed earlier. It fit neatly in her palm, sleek silver metal, no markings, just a single dark button set into its center. She held it up between us. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. I shook my head, unable to tear my eyes from the object in her hand. I call it the Harmony remote, Chloe said quietly, lowering her voice as if the walls themselves might be listening. It's experimental. A friend of mine works in biotech, neural resonance, hormonal modulation. It's designed to align things. Mind and body. Reduce internal noise. My stomach dropped. I didn't understand every word, but I understood enough. Hormones. Neural pathways. Alignment. What did you do to me? I asked. My voice barely made it out of my throat. Her expression faltered. I was trying to help, she said, and for the first time, her certainty cracked. I see how uncomfortable you are all the time, Alex. You disappear into oversized clothes. You flinch when people look at you. I thought, maybe if things felt more balanced, you'd finally feel at home in yourself. The room seemed to tilt. Betrayal hit first. Then fury. Then something sharper and more personal, violation. You changed my body, I shouted, scrambling to my feet. Without asking me. Without my consent. What is wrong with you? My voice broke apart as I spoke. I was shaking, not from fear of what I'd become, but from the knowledge that someone I trusted had decided I was a problem to be fixed. I didn't think it would go this far, she said, backing away. She looked genuinely scared now. The setting was low. It was supposed to be subtle, just ease anxiety. Anxiety? I laughed, the sound wild and unsteady. You call this easing anxiety? We were yelling over each other, years of unspoken resentment bleeding into the moment. She gestured sharply to make a point. The remote slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor with a sharp crack. The button depressed. Something invisible tore through me. My legs gave out. I gasped and collapsed, curling in on myself as a crushing pain seized my chest, tight, suffocating, like iron bands cinching around my ribs. For a terrifying second, I thought my heart was failing. Then the pain vanished. Not faded, evaporated. The constant pressure I'd lived with for as long as I could remember dissolved in an instant. My heartbeat slowed, settling into a steady, effortless rhythm. Breathing became easy. Natural. Too easy. Chloe was beside me instantly. Alex, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I couldn't answer. Because beneath the fear, beneath the anger, there was something else. Peace. Deep. Absolute. Terrifying. The internal war, the grinding friction between thought and feeling, went silent. I hated her for what she'd done. I still did. But a new fear eclipsed the anger entirely. What if this feeling disappeared? What if turning it off meant losing the first moment of rightness I'd ever known? That thought terrified me more than anything else. The remote lay inert on her desk, harmless looking now. The surge had passed, leaving me changed but stable, still sensitive, still altered, but with the echo of calm lingering like an afterimage. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, drained. You don't get to do this to people, I said quietly. You don't get to decide who they should be. I know, she whispered. Her eyes were wet. I was arrogant. And wrong. I thought I could shortcut something that wasn't mine to touch. We sat in silence until the question I'd been avoiding finally escaped me. What if some of it doesn't feel wrong? Chloe looked at me carefully. What do you mean? The feeling, I said. My body still feels strange. But parts of it feel right. And I don't understand why. She thought for a long moment. Then she said gently, maybe you've never let yourself feel what was right before. She crossed the room and opened her closet. Rows of carefully chosen clothes, soft colors, clean lines. After a pause, she selected a few simple items and laid them on the bed. Nothing dramatic. A cream cashmere sweater. A knee-length navy skirt. and, placed with deliberate care, a plain gray bra and briefs. "Just to know," she said softly. "Not for anyone else. Not even me." My heart thudded, not with fear alone, but with trembling curiosity. She left, locking the door behind her. For several minutes, I just stared. Then, hands shaking, I undressed. My usual clothes felt like armor coming off, heavy, restrictive. Standing there in the afternoon light, exposed and unfamiliar, I picked up the briefs. The fabric was impossibly soft. Pulling them on felt like crossing a line I'd never imagined stepping over. They fit. Not just physically, but emotionally. Secure. Grounded. The bra took effort, clumsy fingers fumbling with the clasp. When it finally settled into place, it didn't constrict or overwhelm. It simply defined, a quiet acknowledgement of shape. The sweater followed, draping naturally. The skirt whispered around my legs, reframing parts of me I'd always thought were awkward. I closed my eyes. Nothing hurt. Nothing screamed wrong. When I finally faced the mirror, I didn't recoil. The reflection wasn't a boy pretending. The clothes weren't a costume. Everything, lines, posture, softness, aligned in a way that made sense. Shame surged first. Then confusion. Then relief so strong it weakened my knees. I didn't hate what I saw. And beneath it all, the deepest fear of all. If this feels right, who am I? Tears blurred my vision. Not sadness. Not joy. Release. That day changed everything. The remote was locked away. The dramatic changes stopped, but the door in my mind stayed open. Chloe became my ally instead of my secret keeper. A few days later, she made a suggestion. "Let's go out," she said carefully. "Nothing extreme. Just exist." An hour later, I stood in dark jeans, a fitted sweater, neutral sneakers. Minimal makeup. Still Alex. The mirror showed someone believable. Quiet. In between. The walk from the car to the cafe felt like crossing a wire stretched a mile above the ground. But I walked it anyway. I was certain everyone could tell. Every step felt too loud, every movement too visible. I kept my eyes glued to the pavement, shoulders curled inward, hands buried deep in the pockets of the lightweight jacket Chloe had tossed me. It smelled faintly like her perfume, clean, familiar. "Breathe," she murmured, reaching ahead to open the cafe door. "Just be." The bell chimed as we stepped inside. Warmth wrapped around me instantly. Coffee, steamed milk, sugar, comforting smells layered over one another. The place was half full, alive with low conversation and the clink of ceramic. And somehow, impossibly, no one turned to look. No double takes. No whispers. We joined the line. "What do you want?" Chloe asked quietly. "Hot chocolate," I said, the words barely audible. At the counter, a young barista with an easy smile glanced between us. "What can I get for you ladies?" The word hit me square in the chest. Not painful, electric. My heart jumped, my breath caught. There was no hesitation in his voice, no confusion on his face. He'd looked at me and decided. Instinctively. Effortlessly. Chloe ordered for us while I stood frozen, my mind scrambling to catch up with my body. When I dared to look around, the world was ordinary. Two girls giggling over their phones. An older man absorbed in a newspaper. Life continuing uninterrupted. "Hot chocolate for Chloe," the barista called, then glanced at the second cup. His eyes met mine. "And one for you, miss." "Miss." He slid the mug toward me with a small, genuine smile, nothing lingering, nothing loaded. Just kindness. My face burned as I took it, hands trembling. "Thank you," I said, softly. We found a table tucked into the corner. I wrapped both hands around the mug, letting the warmth ground me. It was absurd how much that moment mattered. Nothing had happened, yet everything had. A few minutes later, one of the girls nearby stood to leave. As she passed, she slowed. "Sorry," she said, smiling at me. "I just wanted to say I love your sweater. That color really works on you." For a heartbeat, I forgot how to speak. Thanks," I managed. She nodded and walked away like it was nothing. Chloe watched me over the rim of her cup, her expression soft and knowing. "See," she said gently. I stared into my drink, throat tight. A compliment. A smile. Being called Miss. Ordinary moments, yet they felt monumental. Proof that the person I saw in the mirror could exist beyond it. That she wasn't something to be hidden. A buoyant lightness filled me. Not the artificial calm from before, this was different. Earned. Real. I'd been seen. The fear didn't vanish, but for the first time, it shared space with hope. Maybe I could exist like this. That cafe visit didn't fix everything. But it showed me the world wouldn't collapse if I stepped into it. From there, the journey turned inward. Chloe's room became my refuge. A safe pocket of space where questions were allowed. One evening, while I struggled with the buttons of a borrowed blouse, she asked quietly, "If you could choose, right now, any name at all, what would it be?" The question stopped me cold. Alex had always been my armor. Familiar. Safe. But it also belonged to a version of me that had never quite fit. Choosing a new name felt like betrayal and freedom all at once. I sat on the bed, fabric forgotten in my hands. Names drifted through my mind, none quite right. Chloe waited without pressure. Finally, one surfaced, close enough to feel familiar, changed just enough to feel new. "Alexa," I said softly. She smiled. "It's perfect." Hearing it spoken aloud sent a shiver through me. It felt aligned. Like something clicking into place. From then on, in that room, I was Alexa. And with a name came intention. Chloe turned it into a project, her specialty. "Okay, Alexa," she said one afternoon, pulling up a chair. "Let's talk about your walk." I'd never thought about walking before. But she showed me how to shift my weight, take lighter steps, let my movement flow instead of stomp. We paced the room endlessly, me awkward and self-conscious, her patient and encouraging. Then came my voice. We practiced resonance, breath, placement. It was frustrating. Embarrassing. But slowly, I found a register that felt truer, still mine, just clearer. Makeup came last, and gently. Foundation to even skin. Mascara for definition. Nothing dramatic. Each small change wasn't about pretending. It was about listening to what felt right. And for the first time in my life, I was finally learning how. My eyes were what surprised me the most. The makeup wasn't about hiding anything or inventing a new face. It was about drawing attention to what was already there, features I had spent years refusing to acknowledge. A little definition, a little balance. Not a mask. A highlighter. I loved how quiet the process was. The soft tap of a brush. The careful pause before each stroke. It felt intimate in a way nothing else ever had, like tending to something fragile and precious. With every small skill I learned, every subtle adjustment, my confidence grew by fractions of an inch. I stopped bracing myself before looking in the mirror. Instead, I studied myself. Alexa was there now, hesitant, uncertain, a little clumsy, but undeniably real. I began touching my own body without flinching. My fingers traced the hem of a skirt, brushed over the gentle rise of my collarbones. These weren't vain gestures. They were negotiations. Truces. I wasn't worshipping my reflection. I was finally accepting it. One evening, after finishing a full face of soft, natural makeup without help, I caught my reflection and smiled, without forcing it. The expression startled me. The person looking back seemed content. The fear never vanished entirely. It lingered like background noise, whispering doubts when I was tired or vulnerable. But it no longer ruled me. A deeper calm had taken root, one that didn't come from a device or an accident, but from intention. From choosing myself, again and again. The world where Alexa existed, limited to Chloe's room and carefully chosen public spaces, couldn't stay hidden forever. Switching back to Alex started to feel unbearable. Like shrugging into a coat soaked with someone else's history. The old name scraped against me. The old clothes felt hostile. We couldn't keep pretending. The first person who had to know was Mom. Dad had been gone for years, leaving the three of us in a quiet orbit around one another. Mom was kind, steady, loving, but practical, grounded in the way things had always been. I had no idea whether there was room in that worldview for me. Chloe helped me plan it. Sunday afternoon. No rush. No audience. No spectacle. I would simply exist as I was. That day, I chose a dark green dress, simple, modest, comfortable. My makeup was light, my hair neat but unremarkable. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just wanted to be honest. Mom was in the living room reading. Chloe sat nearby, wordless but solid. When I stepped into the room, Mom looked up and froze. Her smile faltered. Her eyes traced the dress, the hair, the quiet confidence I didn't even realize I was carrying. She slid her glasses off slowly. "Alex," she said. "What is this?" My rehearsed words evaporated. Chloe stepped in gently. "Mom, we need to talk. This isn't a costume. This is who Alex is." "Alexa," I whispered. "My name is Alexa." Mom stared between us, emotions chasing one another across her face, confusion, fear, grief, concern. "I don't understand," she said. "Honey, you're a boy." The words hurt, but they weren't cruel. They were certainty. Habit. A lifetime of knowing one version of me. Tears spilled before I could stop them. "I'm not," I said, voice breaking. I think I've always been a girl. I just didn't know how to say it." I told her what I could. About the disconnect. About feeling like a guest in my own body. About the relief of finally seeing myself clearly. Chloe filled in the gaps, explaining gently, patiently, translating my emotions into language. When I finished, the room went quiet. Mom didn't shout. She didn't reject me. She didn't embrace me either. She just looked overwhelmed. "I need time," she said finally, and left the room. The days that followed were heavy. She was polite. Distant. She still called me Alex. She didn't comment on my clothes. The silence was its own kind of ache. Then, one morning, something shifted. I came downstairs in a sweater and skirt. Mom was at the stove. She set a plate in front of me without comment. Then, softly, almost as if testing the word in her mouth, she said, "There's more coffee if you want some, Alexa." I nearly cried into my pancakes. That single word wasn't a solution, but it was a beginning. The first crack in the wall. From there, progress came slowly. Conversations were clumsy. Questions went unanswered. But I no longer hid. I walked through the house as myself. Sat at the dinner table as myself. Existed without apology. For the first time, home felt safe. The Harmony remote had been a reckless spark, a door blown open by force. But what came after was real. Earned. Chosen. And now, standing on that foundation of fragile acceptance, I was finally ready to do the hard part. Becoming myself without shortcuts. Real change couldn't come from a device. No switch, no shortcut, no borrowed miracle could sustain something this personal. If I was going to move forward, it had to be by choice, intentional, honest, and mine. Chloe, predictably, threw herself into research and found a gender therapist in the city who worked specifically with teenagers. Walking into that first appointment felt like stepping onto a ledge. Dr. Evans was warm in a quiet, grounding way. No clipboard barrier. No judgment. Just steady attention. And for the first time in my life, I told the truth to someone who didn't already love me. I talked about the hum of discomfort that had followed me since childhood. The sense that my body and mind were constantly out of sync. I described the mirror, the shock, the recognition, the fear. Eventually, I even told her about the remote, the impossible catalyst that had cracked everything open. She didn't flinch. Instead, she gave me language. Gender dysphoria. Identity incongruence. Words that replaced my belief that I was defective. She explained that what I was experiencing wasn't rare or shameful, it was human. Having my confusion named and understood felt like being handed a compass after years of wandering without direction. Therapy became my anchor. It was the one place where I didn't have to manage anyone else's emotions. I could be scared, angry, excited, conflicted. All of it was allowed. With time and support, we began discussing medical transition, not as an escape or a fantasy, but as a thoughtful, measured possibility. Hormone replacement therapy wasn't about rewriting myself overnight. It was about alignment. The decision carried weight. Permanence. Risk. But returning to life as Alex, performing a role that hollowed me out, wasn't survival. It was slow erosion. Mom came with me to the endocrinologist. She was still learning, still frightened, but she showed up. She sat beside me, held my hand, listened as the doctor explained estrogen, how it might soften skin, redistribute fat, change emotional patterns. When it became overwhelming, her grip tightened. I felt her fear. And her love. Starting HRT was strangely quiet. No fanfare. Just a small patch placed against my skin. A promise I made to myself. The changes came gradually. Weeks. Months. A second puberty, but one that finally made sense. My skin softened further. My face subtly reshaped itself. My emotions surfaced more freely, tears came easier, not just from sadness, but from beauty. Each change felt like confirmation. Not magic. Not control. Choice. The remote had shown me a direction, but I was the one walking the road. A year passed, and the frightened boy I used to be felt like someone I remembered rather than someone I inhabited. He mattered. He had survived. But he was no longer the center of the story. Graduation night arrived warm and heavy with summer air. Jasmine bloomed nearby. A year earlier, the idea of this night had filled me with dread, an ill-fitting suit, the wrong name echoing through a loudspeaker. But now, I stood before my mirror and saw Alexa. She wore a simple navy dress, elegant without trying. Her hair fell in soft waves. Her makeup was light but assured. She looked calm. She looked happy. A knock sounded at the door. "Ready?" Chloe asked. She froze when she saw me, then smiled wide. "You look incredible." She stepped closer and gently adjusted a slipping strap, no control, no urgency. Just care. In the mirror, I saw everything we'd survived reflected in her eyes: fear, mistakes, forgiveness, love. Downstairs, Mom waited with a camera and tears that shimmered with pride. She hugged me fully, no hesitation, no distance. At the ceremony, I sat between friends who had learned my name without resistance. When the principal called Alexa Marie Thompson, cheers erupted, led by Chloe's unmistakable shout. I walked across the stage, heels clicking, heart steady. The smile I gave the camera wasn't rehearsed. It was real. Later, alone on the porch, I looked up at the stars. For the first time, my mind was quiet. The static was gone. There was no battle anymore. Just me.